A sound mind. A sound mind. You can read it on the screen. And we're going to take a reference from 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. A sound mind. It's right there on the screen. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 7. A sound mind. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. We're going to be talking about a sound mind this morning. And I have a question. Have you ever had somebody that was sick, facing a crisis, maybe some dilemma in their life, maybe loss of jobs or loss of a loved one, and you're trying to comfort them and you say, you got to have faith. You just got to trust in God. You just got to trust in God. Or have you ever had that people say that to you? You're going through a crisis and somebody tell you, you just got to have faith. You got to trust in God. I'm sure we all have had those experiences, and because we all face crises in our life. Every single one of us will face a crisis. And we know you have to trust God, and we know you have to have faith, but somehow when somebody tells you that in the midst of a crisis, it just doesn't seem to help, does it? I mean, we know we got to trust God. We know we have to have faith, but somehow when you got this terrible thing happening to your life, somehow it just doesn't seem like enough. My sermon today was going to be the gates of the underworld. But at the last minute, I decided to change it to this here, a sound mind. And America is facing a crisis. America faces many crises. We know that. America faces many crises. And some of the crises we've seen most recently has been the Nancy Pelosi crisis, and the Chuck Schumer crises. And we've seen the Adam Schiff crises, and Jerry Nadler crises, and just Democrat crises in general. Of course, and then the other crises we all are aware of in the country. But today I want to talk about another crisis that is gripping the hearts of America. You all know what it is. It's this coronavirus. It's gripping the heart of most people in some way, fashion, or form. It's on the news all the time. And it came from, they say, Wuhan, China, where in the wet market where they sold and ate disgusting animals and critters. And I dare say there's probably not a living person in America today that has not heard of this coronavirus. It's on the news everywhere. We're talking about it earlier, all the rules and regulations that people have to go through and have to have so they don't infect somebody else. And so people are fearful, very fearful. Some people are terrified. And maybe here in the Ozarks, where we have a lot of fresh air, a lot of elbow room, maybe we don't feel the same way. So we probably shouldn't judge too harshly those people living in a high rise, in crowded conditions, surrounded by all kinds of strangers. So we can sort of here, breathe the fresh air, take a walk, and we're kind of immune to that type of fright. As some people have experienced in some of these inner cities, large cities. So we have to have some type of compassion, understanding the fear that they have. Jesus Christ spoke in parables. He spoke in a lot of parables. And a parable is just a story. And the parable or the story that Jesus was talking about illustrated some moral or some spiritual message. He was trying to tell something, and he used a story to help us to understand it. Because sometimes we can understand a little story a little better. So he spoke a lot in stories, and we learned a lot of lessons from the stories. We learned a lot of lessons from listening to parables, and there's all kinds of stories in the Bible that were a real event, but they still teach a principle that we can carry on into this modern day. And one of the principles we're going to look at is recorded in Daniel chapter 3. Daniel chapter 3. Verses 1 through 5. And we're going to look at a story here. Nebuchadnezzar, he was the king of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold. Remember, he saw this dream and he saw this image, and Daniel came out and interpreted what the image would mean. Well, Daniel, or Nebuchadnezzar, decided he needed to build an image after the fashion of this image he saw in his dream. So Nebuchadnezzar the king made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 6 cubits. He set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then Nebuchadnezzar the king sent to gather together the princesses, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all rulers of the province to come to the dedication of the image which Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up. Then the princes, the governors, the captains, the judges, the treasurers, the counselors, the sheriffs, and all the rulers of the province were gathered together unto the dedication of that image that Nebuchadnezzar the king had set up, and they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald cried out, to you it is commanded of people, nations, and languages, that at what time ye hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut. I'm not sure what a sackbut is. Anybody knows? Don't check now, but maybe we'll check the internet later. A psaltery, dulcimer, all kinds of music. You shall fall down and worship the golden image. So there we are. We got this golden image set up in the plains of Dura, and he told all the people, all the leaders of the land, he called them all and said, you're going to worship this. And if he had use of the satellite media and CNN and NBC, he would gather them all together. He'd been doing that. He didn't have that back then. But the whole nation was still brought before the image, and they were commanded to bow, worship the image. And if you didn't worship the image, remember we had Shadrach, Meshach thrown into fiery furnace, so they're terrified. They probably didn't mind. They probably thought this is stupid, but fear caused them to bow down anyway. Even though many of them may have thought this is really a stupid thing to do, but fear caused them to bow down. The image that we are to fear today, now mind you, it'll be a different image next month, or a different image in the fall, or a different image next spring and next year. There'll be a different image, but the image today that we are commanded to bow down and serve is the coronavirus. That's the image that's been set up for us today. And if Daniel was writing this is what he would write today. This would be written today. It says, so with the golden wealth of the media, an image was set up by all the major television networks. In the newspapers and magazines and the media all came together, all the important people of the land. They called upon the senators and the congressmen, the judges, the governors, and doctors to come and worship the image and to fear its great power. That's what we're reading today. The image, however, is really not the coronavirus. That's really not the image we're forced to worship today. What they want the image that we've been presented today is the image of fear. Fear is what we're supposed to honor, respect today. And the fear is powerful. The fear has the power over churches. It has a power over restaurants. Fear has power over economics. Fear has the power of sickness. The fear in our land today controls words. It controls thoughts in our head. It controls the minds of millions of people. Fear rules the lives of millions. It tells them where to go. Fear tells them who to see. Fear tells them what to eat. And fear tells them who they can touch. The image brought before us is the image of fear. The God of fear has gripped the nation. We see the maps on television. You've all seen them. Or maybe in the newspaper. They show all the states, and they're all red. And red is an inflammatory color anyway. And you see all this red, and you say, wow, it's everywhere. 24 hours a day, fear is being pumped into our hearts and minds. And it had taken hold of people. And it works. It begins to work in people. And why shouldn't it? Every station and every reporter is repeating it over and over and over again. We're all facing death and destruction. We're facing the apocalypse, we're being told. Every day we hear news reports about how many people are dying. Don't go anywhere, we're being told. Stay away from people. You have to go out to get groceries. Get home as quickly as possible. All non-essential businesses are closed, and everybody must obey. Stay in your homes. Hide under your bed. Now Nebuchadnezzar put this image up, and the people are told, you have to bow down and worship the image. And you know what they did? They did it. They're afraid not to. They didn't want to get thrown into a fiery furnace. They didn't want some other retribution coming to them. So they bowed. After all the media had commanded them to do it. Now, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. The coronavirus is dangerous. People are dying. It does kill people. So I don't want you to think that I'm making a lark of it. People do die from the virus. These people, statistics, are real people, real moms and real dads and uncles and kids and so forth, and they're dying. So it is something to be concerned with. But fear that is gripping the nation today makes people into slaves. Fear makes people into slaves. Certainly, like I said, I know the virus is contagious and people can die from it. I know that. And people are dying from it. But people die from many things every year. People die from traveling the highway. People die from airplane accidents. People die going to the beach. People die from eating too much food. People die from a lot of things. Sometimes people choke on food and they die. Now the coronavirus, the statistics I got as of last night are 85,356 cases, 1,246 deaths. Now I'm sure it's gone up since then. There's a little under 1,300 deaths from the coronavirus in this country. But listen, people choke on their food and die 5,000 every year. 4 times the amount that have died on coronavirus. People die of choking food, but you don't stop eating food just because some people die from it. 3,500 people die from drowning each year. But people don't stop going to the beach just because 3,500 people die every year from drowning. So the coronavirus has killed 1,246 people. According to the Center for Disease Control, the flu has infected, this year, has infected 39 million people. It has resulted in 400,000 hospitalizations and has 24,000 deaths. 24,000 deaths, but people don't stop the economy over that. Now, I guess probably, as I understand it, and I could be wrong, I understand, is that the coronavirus is really spreading rapidly, where the flu is kind of spread out over a long period of time, so there's no great rush in health care in the hospital and so forth. So it kind of smoothed out over a long period of time where this coronavirus kind of hits it all at once, and so the hospitals get inundated with ill people, and some of them die. Now, I know the coronavirus has the power to kill people. I respect that. I understand that. And I don't think we should tempt the fate of God over it. But we can't let fear control us. See, that's the difference. We can be aware of danger. We can be aware of what is harmful, but we can't let fear control us. In Deuteronomy 10, I don't have it on the screen, Deuteronomy 10 says, and now Israel, talking to us, he's talking to our people, talking to Israel. This is the covenant that God made with Israel. He said, Deuteronomy 10, verse 12, he said, now Israel, what doth the Lord thy God require of thee? This is something required of us. Not just something he wanted to say, hey, good idea. Israel, this is required of you. But to fear the Lord thy God, and walk in all his ways, and to love him, and to serve the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul. Fear the Lord. Don't fear things, but fear the Lord. How many people in our nation today that are fearful of the coronavirus? How many of those people fear the Lord? I wonder. The mayor or the governor of New York, Cuomo, the other day, calling for psychiatrists, psychologists, all this. Anybody can help people and what their issues they face. Have volunteer services. Okay, that's psychiatrists, psychologists. Okay, he's asked for their help. But did the governor or any other governor of our country at one time ever say we need to call upon the Lord? Has anyone said we need to call upon the Lord? Now, fear is contagious. It's very contagious. Especially when every newspaper and they pick talking about it and all saying the same thing, telling us how many people are sick and how many people are dying again, how many people are dying. And they tell us to wash your hands and use the hand sanitizer and don't touch your face and don't shake hands and don't touch people. Don't go anywhere, stay at home. And I guess some of that may be good advice because they say the virus, it wouldn't touch your face. If you touch somebody, you may have it or something. It entry through the nose or the mouth or the eyes. So I understand that. But I don't want to walk in fear. I don't want to live in fear. We as a people, we're commanded to love life. We are to love life. No one wants to die. We should love life. In fact, as Christians, Christ told us, not only do you have life, but he says you can have an abundant life. An abundant life. And that's what we want. We don't want to live in fear. We want to have an abundant life. We have to know these things happen. Choking can kill you. Drowning can kill you. Car accidents can kill you. Lots of things can kill you. Coronavirus can kill you. Flu can kill you. Tuberculosis can kill you. We know all that. But he tells us that we are to seek an abundant life in him. 2 Timothy 2:1 tells us that those who are in the will of God according to the promise of life. That's what he's given us. He's given us a promise of life. We're aware of these things, and I know about those things. You do too. But we can't be fearful of them. We have to focus on life and focus on fear of the Lord. Of course, we should be careful around any type of contagious disease. We all know that. But don't bow to the image of fear. Don't bow to the image of fear. If you have fear, it didn't come from the Lord. If you have fear, it didn't come from the Lord. So Paul tells us 1 Timothy 1:7, 2 Timothy 1:7, for God hath given us not the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. The word sound you see on the screen is from the Greek word sophronismos. And it's the only time it's used in the Bible. And a sound mind means a mind that is disciplined and self-control. In other words, you're not going to have a meltdown. You hear bad things happen, you don't melt down. It's self-controlled, it's disciplined, it's focus on the Lord, focus on life, focus on his promises. It's not focused on the image that is set up before us. The wicked, they don't have that foundation. That's why the Bible tells us in Proverbs that the wicked flees when no man pursueth. There's nobody even after them. They're afraid. And that's why they need a safe place. But as Christians, we are to have a disciplined, self-controlled mind and not let the lies of the world disturb you. We read in Ephesians 6, I don't have it on the screen, but he's talking about the armor of God. In the 6th verse 10, he says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. The word wiles means the trickery of the devil. Put on the armor of God. Fear God. this abundant life, the promise of life. Don't worship the image. I know the image has been set up there, and we were told to bow before it. We're all told to kneel down and praise and bow and live in fear. I know we're told that, but Paul says, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might, that you can stand against the trickeries of the devil. A sound mind will not be swayed by the trickeries of the devil. A sound mind will be self-disciplined and controlled and disciplined. To have a sound mind, to have this discipline, to have this self-control is easy to say, but how do you get it? How do you get a self-controlled mind? How do you get a disciplined mind? Now, we're going to read the passage. We're going to read up here a passage. Here, you've read it already, I'm sure, many times over this period. I'm sure others have suggested also. That's Psalms 91. Psalms 91, we should all be familiar with it. I don't have the King James Version. I forget what version I've got up here. But we got on the screen, Psalms 91. Because remember when Israel left Egypt? Remember when Israel left Egypt, they were told to put the blood on the doorpost. The blood on the doorpost of this perfect lamb, this lamb that had no spot, no blemish. It couldn't be a lamb that was damaged or torn by a beast or a broken leg, something that was kind of worthless. It would be the perfect lamb. And he said, take their sacrifice and put that on the doorpost, and the death angel would pass over you. And some have suggested that it's not a bad idea that we sort of put this on our doorpost. Certainly something we should reflect upon. So I'd like us all to stand, and let's all read that together, and then I'll continue on with my message. Let's all stand in reverence to the Lord. Psalms 91. Those who go to God Most High for safety. We can all read it together. Those who go to God Most High for safety will be protected by the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, you are my safety, a place of safety and protection. You are my God, and I trust you. God will save you from hidden traps and from deadly diseases. He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you can hide. His truth will be your shield and protection. You will not fear any danger by night, or any arrow during the day. You will not be afraid of diseases that come in the dark, or sickness that strikes at noon. At your side 1,000 people may die, or even 10,000 right beside you, but you will not be hurt. You will only watch and see the wicked punished. The Lord is your protection. You have made God Most High your place of safety. Nothing bad will happen to you. No disaster will come to your home. He will put his angels in charge of you to watch over you wherever you go. Sit down. This is something we need to reflect upon. We need to call upon this promise that he has made to us. Now we have the coronavirus, this crisis in our nation. And Rahm Emanuel used to be the chief of staff for Barack Obama, said never let a crisis go to waste. And they are certainly not wanting this crisis to go to waste, so they're trying to capitalize upon it as much as possible to ruin the economy and hopefully defeat Donald Trump's re-election bid. And a lot of people are very concerned, very worried, as I mentioned, and fearful of this giant image that had been put up before us. It stands before us. And the image is huge. And the media is making it bigger every year. Every day they're making the image bigger. But how can we have a sound mind during this time? How can we have a sound mind? We can call upon this promise here in Psalms 91. But it's easy to say, for you tell somebody, I'm going to be positive. People say, you've got to be positive. What does that mean? You've got to be positive. The strength of the mind and the heart, you can't just snap a finger and if you got it. It's not something you got to be positive. Okay, snap your finger and I'm positive. It don't work that way. It's just like if you want to bench press 200 pounds, 300 pounds. You can't say, I'm going to bench press 300 pounds. I believe. Well, you can believe it all you want, but if you can't do it, you can't do it. It's just that simple. You got to build it. You got to strengthen it over a period of time. You're not going to just say, I'm going to be positive. I'm going to believe. I'm going to trust in God. Well, all those are just meaningless words. They're just meaningless words. You can begin trusting in God. You begin believing. But it takes some real time to really build up that muscle, that spiritual muscle, just like a person lifting a weight in a gym. You got to have faith. The Bible tells us, learn of thy Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come. That's why it's so important, people with children, to help them to understand and be taught, to build that relationship with the Lord in their youth. But what about somebody who's old and say, well, wait, I'm not young anymore? Well, there's a saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. So that was the day to begin. Now is the day to begin. To build the discipline and self-control, the strength of the mind, we're given a hint on how to do that. How do you build that strength, the self-disciplined mind, of self-control, that will not fall for the trickeries of the devil, who remain strong in time of crisis? You just can't wait till the crisis comes. You can't wait till you have a flat tire and say, I don't believe there's a tire. I believe there's a spare tire in the trunk of my car. If you don't have a spare tire in the trunk of the car, then all your belief is going to change anything. You don't have a spare tire in the trunk of the car. I'm sorry to tell you that. If you want a spare tire in the trunk of the car, when you have a flat, you better make sure it's there before you leave the house. And it's the same thing here. In life, if you want to have the faith, if you want the power to believe, you better make sure you have it in your trunk. You're not going to call upon it when the crisis comes. If it's not there, it's not there. So how do you build it? How do you build it? Well, we're given a hint in Nehemiah 8, chapter 8, verse 9 through 10. Israel had just recognized their sin, and the law is read to them. In verse 9 it says, this day is holy unto the Lord your God, mourn not nor weep. For the people wept when they heard the word of the law. Let's stop for a second there. They heard the word of the law, they weep, and they're sorrowful. But God is telling them, okay, I understand you're sorry, I understand you're weeping, but it ends now. It's ended because you've been forgiven. You don't weep for all eternity, you weep, you repent, and now he said, it's over with. You don't weep and be sorrowful for all your life. It's over with now. He says there, then he said unto them, go your way, eat the fat, and drink the sweet, and send portions unto them for whom nothing is prepared. For this day is holy unto the Lord, neither be ye sorry, for the joy of the Lord is your strength. Wow. The joy of the Lord is your strength. You want to have strength? It begins joy in the Lord. It begins understanding him, you communicate. It begins building that strength. The joy of the Lord is your strength. You want strength during this time of crisis or any other crisis? You will have to have it. You will have to have the joy of the Lord. You will have to have the joy of the Lord. Don't focus on the coronavirus. Well, we see about it. We hear about it. We got to be careful, understand. We have to be careful. God expects you to be careful. But he says, focus on the joy of the Lord. Focus on what he's done for us. Count your blessings. The old saying, count your blessings, is a song. Some of you may have heard it. Count your blessings, name them, and see what God has done. Count your blessings, name them one by one. Count your blessings, name them one by one, and it will surprise you what the Lord has done. If we want to join the Lord, I guess what I'm saying is somewhere back in our quietness, we need to stop and focus on what he's done for us, the blessings given our nations, the blessings given you in your life, where you are today. Focus on those things. Focus on the salvation and deliverance and the redemption he's given us. Focus on the things that how he's protected our nation, and protect your lives. They're telling how many times you probably should have been, maybe life should have been ended by some stupidity that you did, and here you are today. So joy of the Lord begins by focusing on the blessings and care and love that he's given to each and every one of you. Focus on that. And we're going to close with this verse, Proverbs 17:22. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. A merry heart, the joy of the Lord. Don't focus on the fear. Don't focus on the statue. Don't focus on the image set up in the plains of Dora or on CNN or NBC or any other network on TV. In your life, each and every day, focus on the joy of the Lord and the blessings given to you in your life. And that's where you'll find your strength. Father, we thank you for your wonderful care for each and every one of us. The blessings you bestowed upon us when we know we don't deserve them. But we do deserve them in the fact that we are your sons and daughters. We are your children. We're the sons and daughters of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, and the wonderful blessings you placed upon them and all their generation. Father, we pray that you'll watch over each and every one of our lives. Help us to always find strength in our joy that you've given us. Find our strength in your joy, in our joy that we have with you in our communication. Father, watch over us, keep us in your will, and protect us. In your name we ask it. Amen.
Very good sermon, Pastor Rob. If you'd like to get more information regarding church service, as well as our conferences that we have throughout the year, or our publication, The Torch, you can write to us at Christian Revival Center, P.O. Box 602, Harrison, Arkansas, 72601. That's Christian Revival Center, P.O. Box 602, Harrison, Arkansas, 72601. Or you can email us at revival@southshore.com, revival@southshore.com. If everyone can please stand, and we're going to end with one more song, page 162 of your green hymnals, Just As I Am. And we're going to sing verses 1, 3, and 5. So we're going to do odd verses 1, 3, and 5. 162, Just As I Am.